The chamber of the Galactic Council was unlike any hall humanity had ever seen. It stretched wider than stadiums on Earth, with walls glowing in shifting colors that marked the presence of different star nations. Thousands of delegates from countless worlds floated, hovered, or sat in seats that adapted to their forms. To an untrained eye, it might look like chaos. Creatures of all shapes, sizes, and designs filling a living sea of politics. Yet within the noise there was order, for the Council prided itself as the voice of the galaxy. At the very center, under the largest sphere of light, stood the delegation from Earth. 5 humans had been chosen to represent their species. They were calm, though every alien eye fixed on them with curiosity, suspicion, or outright hostility. Humanity was the newest arrival into interstellar space, and many older races expected them to accept their place quickly. Ambassador Elaine Carter stood at the front. She was not the tallest, not the youngest, but she carried herself with a steady confidence. Her voice was firm yet respectful when she addressed the Council. Humanity thanks the Council for granting us presence here, but we will make our position clear from the beginning. We do not seek conflict, nor do we seek dominance. We only seek freedom to choose our path. The Council's presiding voice, a towering crystalline being known as Arctal, leaned forward. Its body refracted light into beams across the chamber, and its deep tone resonated like 1,000 bells. Ambassador Carter, freedom is allowed only within balance. The galaxy has long learned that unchecked ambition brings ruin. If your species wishes to remain within our society, you must abide by the treaties placed before you. Share your star drives, release your resource rights, and surrender your frontier colonies to joint control. That is the Council's condition. A wave of murmurs spread across the hall. Some species nodded in agreement, others whispered with doubt. To many, the demand was normal. No young race was allowed to rise without oversight. To others, the tone was too sharp, too demanding. All waited for humanity's answer. Carter's expression did not change. She tapped her fingers lightly on the podium, then looked up at the endless faces around her. Earth cannot accept these terms, she said. The chamber fell silent. Even species who barely understood human language felt the weight of refusal. You must reconsider, Arctal insisted. No civilization has ever rejected the Council outright. Perhaps that is true, Carter replied, her voice stronger now. But humanity is not here to surrender what we have built. We fought for our survival on a harsh world. We lifted ourselves from the ground to the stars without aid. We will trade, we will cooperate, but we will not give away our freedom. The words carried through translators into thousands of alien tongues. Some listeners twitched in shock. Others narrowed their eyes or whatever sensory organs they used in disbelief. To defy the Council in public was unheard of. A representative of the Vorak, a reptilian empire known for their military might, rose with a hiss. Humanity dares speak of freedom while ignoring the laws that protect stability? This arrogance will not be tolerated. From another section, the gentle voices of the Kintari, beings of flowing liquid form, murmured with unease. They are young. Perhaps patience will guide them. But Arctal struck the floor with a resonant note. Enough. Ambassador Carter, you speak for your world. Is it your final word? Carter took a deep breath. Behind her, the 4 other human delegates, scientists, soldiers, and statesmen, nodded in quiet agreement. She lifted her chin. It is our final word. We will not negotiate away our independence. The silence that followed was heavy, crushing like the pause before a storm. Then the chamber erupted into voices, angry, surprised, confused, and fearful. Some demanded punishment, others called for caution, and still more whispered of opportunity. The Council had not faced open defiance in centuries. Arctal's light dimmed to a hard, cold blue. So be it, the vote shall be held. If humanity refuses our guidance, then humanity shall be removed from the body of the Council. One by one, the symbols of each civilization flared. Hundreds voted swiftly, their decisions echoing across the chamber. The outcome was overwhelming. Species after species chose expulsion. The Council had no patience for rebellion. Only a few abstained, uncertain of how dangerous this decision might become. When the final light dimmed, Arctal announced, by vote of the Council, humanity is hereby exiled from galactic society. All trade with Terran worlds shall cease. All colonies shall be marked as illegitimate. You are cast out. The humans did not bow, did not plead. Carter simply nodded, turned to her delegation, and walked out of the chamber. Their footsteps echoed in silence, watched by thousands who expected their species to collapse under the weight of isolation. Outside the council hall, whispers already began to spread among diplomats and merchants. Some mocked the humans, predicting they would beg for mercy within years. Others were unsettled. There had been something in Carter's eyes, not desperation but resolve. Humanity did not look like a species ready to crumble. They looked like one preparing to stand. Meanwhile, aboard the Terran ship that carried the delegation, the crew waited anxiously. When Carter and her team returned, the captain rose from his seat. "Well?" he asked. Carter gave the answer without hesitation. "They demanded our surrender. We refused. They have cast us out." A hush fell across the room. Then slowly, determination hardened in every face. The pilot, a young officer from Mars, clenched her fists. "Then we stand on our own." "Yes," Carter said. She looked out the viewport at the endless stars. "We stand, and they will see what it means when humanity refuses to bend." Far across the galaxy, alien leaders met in private chambers. The Vorax celebrated, predicting that humans would soon crawl back, begging for re-entry. The Kentari worried aloud that the Council had acted too harshly. A few small nations quietly wondered if this Earth might prove different from the others who had been silenced. None could yet imagine the scale of what was coming. For now, the galaxy believed humanity was finished. But in the hearts of the humans who walked away from the Council that day, a fire had been lit, a fire that would not fade. The news of humanity's exile spread faster than light could travel. In every starport, in every trade hub, in every gathering of merchants and diplomats, the same story was whispered. The humans refused the Council. At first, most laughed at the thought. How could a young species with less than 2 centuries of space travel defy the Council and expect survival? The Council had cut off giants before. Whole empires had collapsed under sanction. Surely Earth would meet the same fate. But as the weeks turned into months, signs began to appear that this story would not unfold in the usual way. The weight of exile, when the official sanctions arrived, they were absolute. No recognized species was allowed to trade with Earth or its colonies. Human-registered ships were denied access to Council-controlled spaceports. Even navigation routes were restricted, forcing Terran vessels to travel through dangerous and unmonitored regions of space. On Mars, where colonies thrived in domes across the red deserts, shipments of advanced medicine and machine parts stopped arriving. On Titan, mining stations found their contracts canceled, their ore shipments left unsold. Earth itself saw its trade agreements vanish, leaving officials scrambling to reorganize supply lines. The Council expected panic. They expected riots. They expected humanity to turn back to the chamber in shame, begging for forgiveness. But instead, something else happened, a world that remembered on Earth. Leaders from different nations gathered in the United Terran Assembly. For the first time in centuries, rivalries were set aside. The Council's exile was not seen as a defeat, it was seen as a challenge. Ambassador Elaine Carter, returned from the Council chamber, addressed them all through a global broadcast. Her words were simple, but they carried across every city and settlement. "We are on our own, but we have always been on our own. Before the stars, before the Council, before trade and treaties, humanity survived storms, droughts, wars, and struggles that should have ended us. We survived because we adapt. We survived because we do not give up, and we will do so again." The message ignited something deep in the human spirit. Where other species saw exile as the end, humanity saw it as an obstacle. If the Council closed its gates, then Earth would build new ones. The first month's life was not easy. On Mars, engineers learned how to recycle machinery instead of importing replacements. They stripped down old rovers, rebuilt parts from scratch, and created functioning systems with what little they had. On the asteroid colonies, miners took risks venturing deeper into rock to find raw materials once purchased cheaply from alien traders. On Earth, research labs turned to forgotten techniques, organic farming, alternative energy, medical improvisation. Each challenge brought new inventions, new solutions. It was not smooth and it was not painless, but the very pressure that was supposed to break humanity began to shape it instead. Alien observers watched with disbelief. Normally, within months, a young species cut off from trade would send quiet pleas to the Council, begging for mercy. But humanity sent no message. Their diplomats were silent. Their ships, though fewer, still moved. And strangely, those ships were not empty. whispers of defiance in the shadowed corners of space. Where smugglers and free merchants thrived, rumors spread quickly. Human freighters were spotted carrying goods between colonies, but how? The sanctions were supposed to block everything. A merchant captain from the Jar Collective told the story later. I saw a Terran ship in the outer rings. Its hull was patched with scrap, its engines older than my grandfather. But it flew straight through a nebula no one dared to cross. The crew said they mapped it themselves. They laughed as if danger was a game. Humans began charting routes others avoided, through unstable wormholes, near collapsing stars, across asteroid fields too dangerous for larger ships. Where alien vessels refused to go, Terran ships pressed forward. They carried food between colonies, medicines created from Earth's plants, and alloys refined in improvised furnaces. Slowly, colonies that should have starved or shut down began to stabilize, the Council noticed, and some members began to worry. Division among the Council in the grand halls of the Council. Debates erupted. The Vorak roared for stricter action. They must be broken. If they survive this, others will follow. Already I hear whispers from lesser worlds that envy the Terran courage. Crush them before the flame spreads. The Kintari, liquid and calm, flowed into gentle speech. Crush them, and you prove their words true. Did we not exile them because they refuse submission? If we strike harder, we only make martyrs of them. The council leader, Arctal, refracted cold light across the chamber. Their fate is sealed. They cannot stand alone forever. Patience. Their strength will fade. Yet even as these words were spoken, reports showed the opposite. Humanity was not fading. Humanity was enduring. The colonies adapt on Titan. Miners once dependent on council markets learned to refine fuel from methane seas, powering their own engines and sending shipments back to Earth. On the moons of Jupiter, engineers converted ice into complex chemical compounds once purchased from alien traders. On distant outposts near Proxima, settlers created communication arrays strong enough to reach Earth without relying on council networks. Each innovation was small, but together, they painted a picture. Humanity was not dying. It was learning to live without anyone's permission. Children on Earth grew up hearing stories of resilience. Teachers told them not about defeat, but about the honor of standing alone. Farmers in Africa, engineers in Europe, miners on Mars, all worked with a shared purpose. A new identity formed stronger than before. Humanity united not by politics but by necessity. Alien curiosity in hidden channels. Some alien merchants broke the rules. A trader from the gentle Irani species smuggled human-crafted tools into council space. To his shock, they sold quickly. Human goods were not advanced, but they were durable, simple, and effective. Another report told of human food, grain from Earth, coffee from South America, spices from Asia, fetching high prices among alien elites. Even without the Council's approval, human products slipped into the galaxy like contraband treasures. And behind every story was the same whisper. They should have fallen. Why are they standing? The quiet preparation month stretched into a year. By now it was clear humanity would not collapse. But something else began to trouble the Council. Observers noticed human ships were moving more often, not less. They weren't only trading among themselves. They were charting further into unexplored space. Small fleets vanished beyond the rim, mapping regions the Council had long ignored. Why? What were they seeking? Ambassador Carter, now back on Earth, met with the United Terran Assembly in secret chambers. They think exile will limit us, she told the gathered leaders. But in truth, they have freed us. No longer are we bound by their rules, their borders, their permissions. The stars are open. We must not waste this chance. Plans were drawn. Resources were gathered. Ships once meant for trade were converted for long-range exploration. The colonies, though strained, poured energy into a common vision. The Council had forced humanity into isolation, but in doing so, they had given them something no law could ever offer: complete independence. A galaxy begins to watch. By the end of the second year, reports of human resilience could no longer be ignored. In quiet chambers, representatives of smaller species spoke in hushed tones. If the humans can stand against exile, perhaps we can demand more from the Council too. They dare to live without approval. They remind us of what freedom once meant. They are dangerous, yes, but dangerous to whom? The Council dismissed these voices, but unease grew. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw an example of a people who would not bow, who would not beg. who would not break. And that example was spreading. The fire within on Earth. A ceremony was held on the anniversary of the exile. Instead of mourning, cities lit beacons into the sky. From New York to Nairobi, from Beijing to Buenos Aires, lights burned as symbols of defiance. On Mars, miners raised banners above their domes that read, "We endure." On Titan, engineers etched words into steel walls. "No council rules us." Children born after the exile grew up under these symbols. To them, humanity's stand was not a desperate gamble. It was the beginning of something greater. The turning point was in the third year that the galaxy realized something remarkable. Exile had not weakened humanity. It had transformed them. Where once they were a scattered people, now they were united. Where once they were cautious newcomers, now they were explorers charting paths no one else dared to tread. Where once they relied on the Council's markets, now they had built their own. The Council had meant to end them. Instead, it had forged them. And quietly, in the shadows of uncharted space, humanity was preparing something more, something that would soon shake the galaxy to its core. The stars beyond Council space were vast, silent, and unclaimed. For centuries, the great civilizations had marked boundaries and declared forbidden regions, but many places remained unmapped. Most species avoided these dark areas, calling them too dangerous, too costly, or too unstable. But now, humans had nowhere else to go. The patrol. The encounter began at the edge of the Kalos Rift, a stretch of space known for collapsing wormholes and shifting gravitational currents. Few ships ever traveled there, and those that did were usually explorers seeking fame or fools chasing fortune. A Council patrol of 3 sleek frigates drifted near the rift, scanning the region for smugglers. Their captain, a stern Vorak named Jakar, had little patience for the duty. "Nothing ever comes through here," he muttered to his second officer. "This is wasted time." But then the sensors picked up something unusual. A ship was moving out of the rift. Its energy signature was... Terran Jakar's eyes narrowed. Impossible. No human ship should survive that passage. The frigates closed in quickly, surrounding the vessel. To their surprise, it was not a warship, but a simple Terran exploration craft. Its hull scarred by debris, its engines glowing with steady light. The patrol broadcast a message. "Unregistered Terran ship. You are in violation of Council space. Power down and prepare for boarding." Silence answered at first. Then a human voice came through, calm and clear. "This is the Odyssey, exploration vessel of the Terran Assembly. We are not violating anything." "This sector is unclaimed," Jakar hissed. "It is restricted. You will surrender immediately." The human captain's voice carried no fear. "Negative. We have mapped the rift. We will continue our mission." The escaped Jakar ordered his ships to seize the human vessel. Tractor beams lanced out, gripping the smaller ship. For a moment it seemed the Odyssey was trapped. But then, something strange happened. The Terran ship's engines flared, not with standard fusion burn, but with a new kind of pulse. Space itself rippled, bending around the craft. In a flash of light, the Odyssey slipped free from the beams and vanished into the rift's unstable currents. The Council frigates scrambled to follow, but their systems screamed with warnings. Gravity spikes tore at their hulls. Navigation collapsed. They could not chase without risking destruction. The humans had escaped. When Jakar reported the event, his words spread quickly through Council channels. The Terrans had not only survived the rift, they had mastered it. Whispers across the galaxy news of the encounter reached alien ears within days. The humans had developed a new drive system, something capable of slipping through unstable regions of space with ease. The Council called it reckless, dangerous, unstable. But smaller species heard something else. Freedom. If the Terrans had truly found a way to travel where no Council fleets dared, then borders no longer mattered. Trade routes could be opened in secret. Colonies could survive without permission. For the first time, an alternative to the Council's authority seemed possible. The Council tried to silence the reports, but whispers traveled faster than official decrees. In starports and markets, smugglers repeated the same words. The humans are moving where no one else can follow. The Council debates in the Great Chamber. Arguments rose louder than ever. Jakar, furious at his failure, demanded war. They defied us openly. They resist our patrols. If we do not act, they will grow stronger. The Kintari, ever calm, disagreed. They are exploring, not attacking. Are we to punish them for discovery? A third faction, smaller but growing, raised a different concern. A scholar from the Irani spoke softly. We exiled them to isolate them. But what if exile has given them strength instead? What if we have created something we cannot control? The council leader, Arctal, refracted cold light across the hall. Humans cannot be allowed to disrupt stability. We will monitor them closely. If they provoke again, we will act. Yet beneath the words, unease spread. The humans were no longer predictable. The Odyssey returns weeks later. The Odyssey returned to Earth orbit. Its crew, weary but triumphant, carried something more valuable than trade goods. Maps, detailed star charts of the Kalos Rift, safe passages where no one had dared travel before. Hidden resource fields, new habitable worlds, and rare elements buried in drifting asteroids. The data stunned the assembly. In one journey, the humans had gained resources that could fuel colonies for decades. Captain Hale, leader of the Odyssey, stood before the assembly and spoke plainly. The council wanted us cut off, but out there beyond their reach lies everything we need. We do not have to beg for scraps. The stars are ours to claim. Cheers erupted in the chamber. The ripples as the new map spread across Terran colonies, hope replaced fear. On Mars, settlers planned expeditions into the Rift. On Titan, engineers built modified drives to copy the Odyssey's success. On Earth, young students dreamed not of council approval but of journeys into the unknown. But the ripples did not stop at humanity. In quiet corners of council space, lesser species studied the rumors. Some secretly sent envoys to Terran stations offering quiet trade. A handful even asked for copies of the maps. Humanity, once exiled, was becoming a symbol. Another encounter. It did not take long for another spark to fly. A year after the Odyssey's escape, another Terran ship, the Vanguard, was spotted near the frontier. This time it was not an exploration craft but a freighter carrying supplies. A council cruiser intercepted it, demanding surrender. The Terran captain refused. When the cruiser attempted to fire warning shots, the Vanguard activated the same new drive system. Instead of fleeing, it danced through space, appearing and vanishing across short distances. Every time the cruiser tried to target it, the freighter slipped away. Finally, the council vessel, low on fuel, was forced to retreat. The Terrans had embarrassed them again, this time in open space. The symbol of resistance, stories of the encounters grew larger with each telling. To some, they were myths. Humans flying ships that moved like shadows, outsmarting entire fleets with laughter and courage. To others, they were dangerous truths. In starport taverns, alien merchants raised glasses to the wild Terrans. On distant moons, workers whispered that maybe they, too, could live without the Council's heavy hand. For the first time in centuries, the Council's authority no longer seemed absolute. Humanity's secret inside hidden hangars on Earth and Mars, Terran engineers worked tirelessly. The drive system, called the Slipstream Core Mine, was not yet perfect. Its strained hulls risked overloads and consumed enormous energy. But it worked. And each test made it safer, stronger, faster. What the Council did not know was that humanity had not built the Slipstream Core in exile. They had been developing it in secret for decades, long before they met the Council. The exile had simply forced them to reveal it earlier than planned. Ambassador Carter understood the danger. We cannot flaunt this too soon, she warned the Assembly. If we show too much power, the Council will strike with everything they have. But if we hide it completely, we lose the chance to inspire others. We must walk carefully, the leaders agreed. For now, Terran ships would use the slipstream only when threatened, letting rumors spread without full proof. Let the galaxy wonder. Let them fear. The spark catches flame. The Council believed they had time. They believed humanity would eventually falter, their new technology exposed as reckless. But instead, each month brought more evidence that the humans were not breaking. They were rising, their colonies thrived. Their ships traveled further. Their name carried weight in whispers, and across the stars, small nations began to dream again. The final whisper in a dim council chamber. A young diplomat from a minor world spoke quietly to his mentor. They were supposed to vanish when exiled. Instead, they grow stronger. Tell me, teacher, What happens when fire is thrown into darkness? The elder sighed. It spreads. And indeed, the spark had been lit. What began as one Terran ship defying a patrol was already burning across the galaxy. The Council did not yet know it, but the age of their unchallenged rule was ending, for humanity had shown something no one dared believe possible. The Galactic Council had expected humans to collapse within a year of exile. By the 4th year, it was clear that collapse would never come. The whispers of human resilience had grown into open rumors. Council patrols that intercepted Terran ships found themselves outmaneuvered, humiliated, or simply ignored. Human colonies thrived on improvised trade and daring exploration into forbidden regions. Their slipstream drives, though not fully understood by outsiders, gave them freedom no other species possessed. The Council's authority, once absolute, was beginning to crack, and then the humans chose their moment to step back into the light. The emergency summit, it began with panic along the Zeth corridor. A Council convoy transporting precious energy crystals reported being shadowed by Terran ships. No attack was made, but the convoy swore that the humans were testing their defenses, studying their formation, and, most alarming of all, flying vessels far larger than before. Fearing escalation, the Council called for an emergency summit. Delegates from hundreds of worlds crowded into the Great Chamber once more. Anger, fear, and suspicion filled the air. The Vorak demanded war. The Kintari urged restraint. The smaller species whispered their doubts. At the center, Arctal, the crystalline leader, spoke with cold authority. The Terrans test us. They believe exile grants them license to roam free. We will remind them that the Council rules all. But before any vote could be taken, the chamber doors opened, and the humans walked in. The return 5 years earlier, they had walked out in silence after being cast into exile. Now, they entered with steady steps, heads high, their faces calm. At their front was Ambassador Elaine Carter, older but unshaken, her presence commanding attention even among the most powerful species. She did not ask permission to speak. She simply walked to the center and waited. The chamber erupted in outrage. They have no right to be here. Exile forbids them from entry. Remove them at once. But Carter raised her hand. Her voice carried through the translators, cut through the noise. You demanded we vanish. You demanded we surrender. You declared us gone. But here we stand. And we are not alone, confusion spread. Not alone? What did she mean? Carter turned her gaze upward. Look to the sky. The arrival high above the Council's homeworld, fleets patrolled in tight formation. They were prepared for war, expecting human ships to arrive in defiance. But what appeared was something no one had imagined. Out of slipstream, a single vessel emerged. It was not like any Terran ship seen before. Larger than dreadnoughts, broader than carriers, taller than the tallest towers, it moved with a grace that defied its size. Its armor glowed faintly with layered alloys unknown to Council science. Its engines hummed with restrained power. It was not a fleet. It was only one ship, but it looked as though it could challenge fleets alone. The shock on the Council floor. Silence reigned. Delegates stared at the holographic projection now filling the chamber, the Terran warship hanging above their world like a silent giant. Even the Vorak, so eager for war, fell silent. Their war fleets, powerful and vast, suddenly looked fragile by comparison. Ambassador Carter's voice carried across the chamber. You told us to vanish. We did not. You thought exile would break us. It forged us. And now you see what we have built in freedom. Arctal's crystalline body dimmed. This is intimidation. One ship does not make you strong. Carter's eyes narrowed. One ship is all we needed to show you the truth. The battleship, the vessel above, was named the Resolute. It was humanity's answer to exile. A battleship built in secret across Mars, Titan, and Earth. It carried weapons untested in Council wars, shields designed from human creativity, and engines capable of leaps far beyond known drives. But more than technology, it carried symbolism. It was proof that humans had not merely survived. They had thrived. They had built something beyond what the galaxy thought possible. Every smaller species in the chamber saw it and felt the same thought. If the humans can do this alone, what could we do if we were free? The Council divides, the chamber erupted again, this time with chaos. The Vorak shouted for immediate destruction of the ship. The Kintari pleaded for dialogue. The Irani asked quietly, Is it too late to stop what we began? Arctal's voice thundered. This cannot be allowed. Humanity must surrender the vessel or be destroyed. Carter did not flinch. You misunderstand. The Resolute is not here to fight. It is here to remind you that we will not be erased. We do not need your approval. We do not need your markets. We stand on our own. But we are not here to conquer. We are here to show you another way. The message, her words cut deep. The council was built on fear. Fear of chaos, fear of disobedience, fear of collapse. For centuries, every young race had been forced into submission under that fear. But here stood humanity, unbroken, standing before the entire galaxy, offering an example of strength without domination. Carter raised her voice so all could hear. We asked for respect. You gave us chains. You demanded we surrender. We refused. And now you see what exile gave us, freedom. You can try to silence us again. But remember this. If one ship can stand against your entire council, what do you think will happen when others see they too can stand? The smaller species in the galleries above the council floor. Representatives of minor worlds leaned forward. The Tayari, long forced to hand over their mineral-rich moons, whispered to each other, if humans can resist, perhaps we can too. The Larn, whose trade was taxed into poverty, thought aloud, they offer another way. Maybe the council's rule is not the only path. Seeds of doubt were being planted everywhere, and the council could not stop them. The threat of war, the Vorak delegation slammed their claws against the floor. Enough! Destroy the Terran ship! Crush their defiance now before it spreads. But their words rang hollow. Everyone had seen the Resolute. Everyone had felt its presence. Even if it could be destroyed, the cost would be unimaginable. And worse, if one ship existed, how many more were hidden? The council, once confident, now hesitated. Humanity's Stand Ambassador Carter gave her final words. You told us to leave. We have left your council. But we have not left the stars. We do not come to conquer, but to prove that independence is possible. We will trade fairly with those who wish it. We will defend ourselves against those who threaten us, and we will never again bow to chains disguised as guidance. She stepped back, her eyes calm, her message delivered. Above, the Resolute drifted silently, a giant shadow across the world. The silence, for the first time in centuries. The council could not respond with authority. Their threats sounded empty. Their votes seemed powerless. The galaxy had seen something greater than law. It had seen a free people standing against the most powerful assembly in existence. And in that silence, every civilization wondered the same thing. What if we followed them? The beginning of change, the summit ended in confusion. The council refused to act immediately, fearing war they might not win. Humanity left as calmly as they had entered, the Resolute vanishing back into slipstream. But the impact remained. Across star systems, species spoke of the unveiling. Some called it arrogance. Some called it hope. Some called it the spark of revolution. The council had tried to erase humanity. Instead, it had given them a stage to show their strength. And now nothing could stop what had begun. The unveiling of the Resolute changed everything. The council chambers, once a place of firm authority, had been left in silence after the humans departed. The delegates could no longer deny what they had seen. One Terran battleship, standing unchallenged above their capital world, had shifted the balance of power. The council's decision to exile humanity, meant to erase them, had backfired. Instead, it had created the strongest example of resistance the galaxy had ever known. And now, the galaxy began to move. Whispers across the stars and quiet trade stations. Merchants whispered about Terran ships appearing in places once unreachable. They told of human captains who offered fair exchanges instead of heavy taxes. They spoke of colonies thriving where others had failed, built on cooperation instead of fear. Among the smaller species, these whispers turned into questions. If humans can survive without the council, why can't we? What gives the council the right to control us at all? These were dangerous thoughts, thoughts the council had worked for centuries to suppress. But once spoken, they spread like fire. The council in crisis, the Galactic Council gathered again, but unity was gone. The Vorak demanded war, their voices filled with rage. If we do not crush the humans now, rebellion will spread. They must be destroyed before others follow their example. The Kintari shook their narrow heads. You saw their ship. Even if it falls, at what cost, and what if more exist? We cannot gamble the safety of our people. The Irani, calm as ever, offered a quiet warning. The humans did not show their battleship to threaten us. They showed it to remind us, if we strike now, we may prove them right, that we are tyrants who fear freedom. The chamber echoed with argument, but no decision could be reached. For the first time, the council hesitated. Humanity's next step. While the council argued, humanity moved forward. Ambassador Carter returned to Earth, greeted by leaders and citizens alike. She carried with her the proof of their triumph. The council was no longer untouchable. The Resolute became a symbol across the human colonies. Children painted it on walls. Workers sang its name in shipyards. Soldiers looked upon it with pride. It was not only a weapon, it was hope forged into steel. But humanity knew they could not stand alone forever. Their strength lay in something greater than weapons. It lay in alliances. The first defections, the first to reach out, were the Tayari. Their world was rich in minerals, stripped bare for centuries under council taxes. They sent secret envoys to Earth asking for trade in exchange for friendship. Then came the Larn, whose people had grown weary of handing over their harvests for unfair prices. They wanted Terran slipstream engines to free their ships from council patrol routes. One by one, more voices joined. Quiet at first, fearful of council punishment, but growing bolder each day. The humans listened, welcomed, and promised nothing but fairness. For the first time in living memory, smaller species felt they had a choice, seeds of rebellion. The council grew desperate as reports came in. Colonies once loyal now refused shipments. Patrols were ignored. Minor fleets began to vanish into unexplored regions, following human slipstream paths. The Vorak threatened to send their armadas, but even their allies hesitated. Fear had taken root. Not fear of humans, but fear of change. If the council struck too hard, it might break completely. If it did nothing, humanity's influence would spread. Arctal, the crystalline leader, felt cracks forming in more than the council. His own body dimmed as he realized the truth. The age of control was ending. The second arrival months later, the humans returned. This time, they did not arrive with one ship. They came with three, the Resolute, the Endeavor, and the Horizon. Each was massive, each different in design, and each proof that humanity's strength was multiplying. They appeared above the neutral station of Vera, a crossroads of trade. The message was simple. Humans were here to stay, and they were open for business. The council could not intervene. Too many minor worlds were present, too many eyes watching. To attack would be to prove humanity's every word about tyranny. So they did nothing. And in that silence, the galaxy chose. The shift trade with humanity grew in secret at first, then openly. Human goods, machines built with ingenuity, medicines designed with creativity, art filled with raw spirit, spread across systems. In exchange, other worlds sent resources and knowledge. It was not conquest. It was cooperation. The council's grip weakened with every exchange. Their fleet still existed, their laws still stood, but their authority was no longer absolute. The smaller species had tasted freedom, and they would not forget. Ambassador Carter spoke often. Her voice carried across star networks. Humanity did not come to rule. We came to prove that freedom is possible. The council feared it, but you have seen it with your own eyes. You are stronger than you think. Her words were repeated on every world where hope stirred. The Vorak's last stand. The Vorak, unwilling to accept the new order, launched an attack. Their warships descended upon a Terran colony on the edge of known space, believing it weak. But when they arrived, they found not one colony, but a coalition. Humans stood beside Tayari miners, Larn farmers, and even Kintari defectors who had chosen to break from their own leaders. Together they defended the world. The Resolute arrived mid-battle, its massive form blotting out the stars. Its weapons did not fire first. Instead, it broadcast a single message. We will defend, but we will not dominate. Leave now or face the united will of free people. The Vorak fought anyway. Their fleets clashed against Terran shields, but the battle ended in disaster for them. Their armadas, once feared across the stars, limped home broken. The council could no longer deny it. Humanity was not alone. The fall of fear after the battle. The galaxy changed forever. Species once silent now rose in defiance. Taxes were refused. Patrols were ignored. Worlds declared neutrality or aligned openly with humanity. The Council tried to threaten, but its words carried no weight. For centuries, it had ruled by fear, but fear no longer worked. Instead, the galaxy looked to the humans not because they were the strongest, not because of their ships, but because they had proven something greater, that survival was possible without submission. The Council's dilemma, in the Great Chamber once more. Arctul stood before the fractured assembly. We created this. We cast them out, thinking to erase them. Instead, we made them strong. Now we must choose. Fight a war we cannot win, or accept that our age of absolute control has ended. The delegates argued, but deep down they knew the truth. The Council would continue to exist, yes, but it would never again be the sole authority of the galaxy. The humans had broken that illusion forever. Humanity's place on Earth, celebrations filled the skies. On Mars, factories worked day and night. On Titan, children pointed at the stars with pride. But humanity did not claim victory as conquest. They claimed it as survival, as freedom. Ambassador Carter, standing aboard the Resolute, looked out into the endless galaxy and spoke softly. This is only the beginning. We have proven that no voice can be silenced forever. Now we will build not just for ourselves, but for all who believe in a future without chains. Her words became the foundation of a new age. The New Dawn years later, historians would call it the shift, the moment the galaxy moved from fear to choice. The Council remained, but no longer untouchable. Humanity thrived not as rulers, but as partners. Dozens of species followed their path, forging alliances, trading freely, and building futures their ancestors had never dared dream. And at the heart of it all, the humans remained resilient, defiant, and unbroken. The people who had once been told to vanish had instead lit a fire that could never be extinguished. For when humans refused to negotiate, when they were told to be gone, the Council thought it was the end, but it was only the beginning.